ain't we? We back again. All right, all right, all right. In this broadcasting, right, we will be talking about third dimensional foods, and the artificial ingredients that are actually inside of the foods, and how these third dimensional artificial foods keep your mind locked down within the third dimension. So let's just talk about it, right? Um, a lot of people, when they're eating, a lot of people rely on the word called food. A lot of people believe that they're eating food, but majority of people have been programmed to believe that's what they're eating, because a lot of people go based on what they're told, not the research that they actually do for the food, right? So when it comes to third dimensional foods that have artificial intelligence with them, what I'm talking about is simply is this. If you was to go inside of your cabinet, right, and look at the third dimensional boxes that are within inside of your cabinet, right, you would notice that you have ingredients on those boxes. You might have modified starches, artificial coloring. You also will have things how can I say, modified starches, right? All those three ingredients are not ingredients at all. They would technically be artificial intelligence. Let me break it down to you, the reason why I'm saying that it's artificial intelligence. When you eat, right, you probably need to realize that you have genetic codes, right? And when you're feeding yourself food, which is technically, when you're feeding yourself food, you have to watch the ingredients that you're intaking. And the reason why I say watch the ingredients that you're intaking is because, on a simple fact, a lot of people believe that when they're eating, that they're just feeding their stomach. Because a lot of us get that connection of with the stomach where it's just growling. And when the stomach growl, most people eat. But a lot of people miss a lot of steps when it comes to them actually eating information. Food is not food anymore. It is information of what you're eating. The reason why I say it's information is because when you eat something, right, you believe that your food is going to your stomach, which technically the information that you are eating is going to your information processor, technically your first brain, okay? Your information processor is what you call your stomach. But technically, that's not a stomach at all. It is an information processor based on the foods that you're eating. So what happens is this. When you eat a third dimensional item that has artificial intelligence in it, right? What happens is when you eat, the information is being broken down with inside your information processor that you call the stomach, right? When the information is being broken down, a lot of people believe that, okay, the food has been digested, now I'm going to go take a poop. But there's two sections that a lot of people miss. When the information is being broken down in the stomach, that is technically an information processor, that information has to now travel somewhere else. The information that gets broken down in your information processor now transferred to your mind, okay? When the information is being transferred to the mind, right, based on the artificial intelligence that you're eating, it can manipulate your mind and bring in, how can I say in simple terms, behavioral problems that you didn't have before. Let me just break that down a little bit more. When you're eating modified starches, GMOs, and artificial coloring, all three of those ingredients do not identify with your genetics. If you was to look at your genetics, you'll come to realize you don't have artificial coloring, modified starches, and artificial intelligence within there. You don't. So when you're eating your foods that is technically information, why would you put information inside your vessel that's technically going to go against your genetic codes? You know what I'm saying? So let me just finish breaking that down. So when you intake information that you call food, right, that information goes to the stomach, which is your first information processor, now transferred to the mind. The reason why the information is being transferred to the mind is because the mind needs to survive off of information. Okay? When the information is being broken down in the mind, right? A lot of people don't realize that based on the information that you eat, you can lock your mind down to the third dimension, where you would think only the third dimensional world and that's it, because you're going based on what you can see. But this is what I would say to you. You're only going to see things in the third dimension based on the information that you process in your vessel. So what I mean by that, as in, our vessels are something that is natural. Okay, for me, I'm a carbon being. So with that being said, I naturally take in sunlight. I naturally can ground myself with the earth. I can naturally do that. But what I also realize with my vessel is that it's natural. So in my world, I'm looking at it as I need to eat things that are naturally identified with my body, with my genetic codes. Okay, if I do not align myself with foods that naturally identify with my genetic codes, then technically I'm going against my natural genetic code structure. And let me get a further breakdown of that. It's just as simple as, like, when you look at your genetics, and if you do research on yourself, you have genetics. But those genetics, right, also receive information. And the information that it receives is from the foods that you eat, the sun that you intake, when you ground yourself, things of that, right? But what happens is that your genetic codes can be distorted as well. It's like this. Let me show you. In this third dimensional world, a lot of people would say to me that they're eating fried chicken. The reason why they're saying that they're eating fried chicken is because, on a simple fact, they are a third dimensional character, right? That has not done any studies on themselves. So majority of people, when they eat fried chicken, 90% of the world is going to agree that they're eating fried chicken. But hold on, let me just say this. How is it fried chicken, right? When before you fried it up, it was a dead bird. That bird that's inside your information processor that you call a stomach is not clucking in your stomach, is it? So again, as a third dimensional character, you have a characteristic where you will lie to your mind to conform your mind in order to consume a dead bird. As a fourth dimensional character, I would never eat a dead bird. Why? Because of the information that's within that bird, right, does not align with my genetic code structure. I didn't come from a bird, so why would I eat a bird? More importantly, the bird is dead. So let me just give you a further breakdown. If the foods that you naturally need to process for your vessel, for the foods that you need to naturally process for your vessel should be more of produce, right? The information that you would be eating would be more of information of life to your conscious. A lot of people, when they're eating, they don't realize, like, hold on, are you feeding your conscious death or are you feeding your conscious life? And this is the mind trick that we all fall for, because we looking at foods and be like, oh, it's just food. Everything is not everything is not food. The word food sounds like you have been fooled. Let me repeat that again. The word food, right, sounds like you have been fooled. You see what I'm saying? As in, someone is telling you what you are eating is food. But if you was to do research on what you're eating, none of the information that you're eating for your vessel, it doesn't align. So if the food does not align with the vessel, what are you actually feeding your vessel? Let's take it a step further. If you are eating things that go against your vessel, right? and you look at the ingredients, because food is not food anymore. It's based on information, and you're feeding the mind. The stomach just gave you when your stomach growled, that's just a signal to let you know you're hungry. That's it. But the stomach is nothing more than an information processor. So let me just get back on the point what I was saying. When you're eating foods that go against your genetic structure, right? That information, right, is now programming the mind, right, in order to only see in the third dimension. A lot of people don't believe that there's other dimensions within them. A lot of people believe that when I say the word dimension, you're thinking like, oh, you're talking about a dimension time machine. Nope, that doesn't even exist. The things that you probably get off the internet, that's not true. Dimensions are located within what? The subconscious. Okay? When you naturally tap into the subconscious of who you are, then you start to realize, okay, everything is not the way it actually appears. And for some people, that's scary for them. And the reason why I say that's scary for them, because on the simple fact, a lot of people go based on their thoughts. They don't go based on research or what they actually know. So what happens is a lot of people will eat information and don't realize that the information that they're eating, right, is programming their mind to stay within the third dimension, for you to only identify with third dimensional characteristics. And third dimensional characteristics is just something like this. I'll show you. I walk up to people, they be at Popeyes, and I ask them all the time, what you eat? And they would say to me, I'm eating fried chicken. I'm eating Louisiana fried chicken or Popeyes chicken. And I say to them all the time, how was it fried chicken before you fried it, it was a dead bird? Are you okay eating dead birds? And some people look at me and they're like, I'm just looking at what you're doing. It is a bird, isn't it? They agree. Before you fried it, it was dead, wasn't it? And they agree. But me just saying that and bringing them out of their third dimensional characteristics and now stepping into the fourth dimensional characteristic that's technically within them, they kind of get aware. Because what I also tell people is that the information that you are eating, do you realize that you're programming your mind to either be a dead conscious or a live conscious? See, let me show you something. A lot of people, when I say dead conscious, they're looking at it like, oh, you mean like I won't wake up again? Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. See, you have to experience death. You can't experience death if your body is out of commission. And what I mean by out of commission, as in like your vessel is not willing to give you life anymore. Technically, you are the soul that's empowering the vessel. So look at it like this. If you're not feeding your vessel things that align with your genetic code structure and that align with your mind, that naturally the information that you're eating is going to keep your mind alive, what are you doing? Why you think there's a difference between produce and processed foods? They both start with a P. You have produce and you have processed foods. Now let's just talk about the grocery store. A lot of people, they don't pay attention to what's going on in the grocery store, but I do. When I go inside of the grocery store, I notice two major things. I notice that the grocery store, depending on where you're going at, majority of them, when you first come inside of the store, the information that you see in the produce section is advertised to you first. Walk inside of any grocery store and you would be like, oh, what he's saying is actually real. Yeah. Whenever you go inside of a grocery store, the first information, right, that you call food, is the first thing that's advertised to your conscious. And a lot of people don't pick up on that. So what a lot of people do is this. They walk past and they go to the freezer sections. But let me get back to the produce for 1 second before we go to the freezer section. You need to realize that when you're eating vegetables, fruits, right? Notice what type of colors they are. With produce, one of the most highest colors that you can eat is green. Let's pay attention to the colors. Green, you have yellow, you have orange, you have red, and you have other different colors, purple as well. But majority of those colors are high vibrational colors. Majority of those colors that you're eating from the produce have information within it. Now let's break down how the information got inside of the fruit or the produce that's what you're eating. And a lot of people miss these steps because they don't value themselves or value the food that they're eating. So how did this fruit become information? Let's just talk about it. A lot of people, when they say ingredients is actually another transfer word of saying information. It's just a play with words. That's it. Now, the information in order to build that fruit or produce that you eat is what? A seed. That's information. Your ground. That's information. Along with the water, that's information as well. Along with the sunlight, that's information. Now, all four of those cycles, right, are natural cycles. Pay attention. You are a seed yourself. You probably don't realize it, but you came from your parents, your father. He carries his seeds, and you are an offspring of him. So, if your father naturally carries seeds, right? Don't you think the right process for you to do is to eat anything that naturally came from the resources of this land? And what I mean from the resources of this land, as in simply saying, everything, majority of things that naturally come from the ground, right, have some type of carbon information within it. So, if your vessel is naturally natural, why wouldn't you not want to take in high vibrational information? And what I mean by high vibrational information is the 4 steps of what I had said. The seed, water, which is information, the sunlight, along with the ground. All 4 of those are natural. And all 4 of those processes, right, had to come together as one in order to give you a fruit that is technically high vibrational knowledge for your mind. So I say to people all the time, if you valued how produce is grown, the produce actually value you as well. Because without the soul empowering the vessel, in order to bring something natural to the land for yourself, right? All you're doing is when you eating it is keeping your conscience alive. That's it. Majority of people on this land are consciously dead. And what I mean consciously dead is that if I ask you, what are you eating, and you lie to me, and technically you're lying to yourself first. Because I always ask people all the time, are you in control of your own mind? And they say yes. And I say to them, well, if you're in control of your own mind, right, then that means that you should be aware of what you're eating. If you are aware, consciously aware, not just with your eyes, if you're consciously aware of what you're eating, then consciously you know, like, I have to feed my conscious. It's not your stomach that you're feeding. I mean, the information gets broken. Your stomach doesn't keep the food all day. It has to get broken down. Information is transferred from the mind now to the vision. We will get into the vision in just a second, but I want to keep focused on with the stomach and the mind. So when you are eating low vibrational foods, right, that don't have no melanin content, no carbon content, right? Remember the part I was telling you about the produce section, right? Now we about to walk you into the store again where the freezer section at. Okay? Now, when you go to the freezer section, right, pay attention. Majority of the foods that you're going to see, right, are processed foods. There's a difference between produce and processed. Processed foods, right, they all have ingredients, right, which is technically nothing more than information. It's the same thing. But what you have to realize is that when you go to the freezer section, everything is frozen. All your box items are frozen, right? Think about it like this. If you are a live being, why would you feed yourself something that has been processed from technically mankind's laboratories? And what I mean by that, as in, you go to the freezer section, you see a certain brand you like, you pick up that item. But within that item, there are certain ingredients. And majority of them go like this: modified starches, artificial coloring, right? Just those two ingredients alone are artificial intelligence for your mind already. See, let me show you how they get you hooked. Once they put those ingredients in there and you don't turn over the label and actually read it, those ingredients, information, can now become addicting to the mind. Or, how can I say this? Can be addicting to your stomach. That is technically your information processor. See, your stomach is like a magnet, right? Let's just say you keep eating seeded grapes, seeded watermelons, seeded apples. And let's say you eat that for about 10 days straight. You know that your stomach and your mind are going to naturally want you to repeatedly do that over and over and over and over, because the information that is within inside of those fruits naturally align with your genetic codes. And that's another thing that people don't realize, that when they're eating, that's what you're healing, your genetic codes. Now, let me just get back to the frozen section. When you go in there and you pick up a third dimensional box, right, and you don't look at the ingredients, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have modified starches, artificial coloring, and just those two ingredients alone, like I said again, is nothing but artificial intelligence. The reason why I say it's artificial intelligence is because, on a simple fact, the information, the artificial intelligence, does not align with your genetic codes. It does not align. It's not a natural process. None of that food that you're eating inside of that frozen section, none of it came from a natural resource. None of that food was hit by sunlight. None of that food came from a seed. None of that food came out the way you came into this world. So why should you eat it? It doesn't make sense to me. So when you're eating third dimensional foods, right, that have artificial intelligence in it, if it has artificial intelligence in it, what do you think it's doing to your mind? A lot of people believe that they're just eating food. That's their own belief system, if that's what they believe. But I prefer to stay in the truth of what things are and to know what things truly are. Because if I don't know, right, and I don't do research, then what am I doing to myself? Am I not programming myself to be a third dimensional character that is unaware that technically is consciously dead? How is it consciously alive? If everything that it eats is dead, is nothing but death. People eat dead birds every day. I got another trick for you. They got this thing in the third dimensional world called ground beef. Pay attention. Ground beef. A lot of people laugh when I say this, but it's going to make perfect sense to you. You're eating ground beef? Like, they say, yeah. I'd be like, okay. How is this ground beef if it didn't come from the ground? I'm just looking at the words that you're using towards your conscience. You're not going to trick me because I know what you're eating. But it's the words in the English textbooks that people use, and they don't realize that it spells to your ears. Listen, do you know that you can trick your own mind into eating death? You can do it. A lot of people do it every day. They lie to themselves. You're not lying to me because I know the truth. But how is it ground beef if it never came from the ground, though? Where do beef come from? I'm be honest with you, I don't even know. I believe it come from a cow. A deer? I don't know. But last time I checked, in order to get that beef from out of that animal, you had to kill that animal. Now I'm going to show you how this go with the animals. It gets deep. And then we'll go back to the process of how your eyes look into the third dimension. But pay attention to this. A lot of people say to me in this world that they're dealing with depression. And I say, you dealing with depression? And they say, yes. I say, okay. Can you tell me where your depression started from? And a lot of people go based on their thoughts of where the depression started from. They'll tell me like, well, I was stressed. Stressed about what? Well, you know, my job is stressing me, and you know, the kids and situation. I'd be like, that's not where your depression started from. That's not where your depression started from. It's not your family. It's not your job. Do you want to dig a little bit more further in your life to see where the depression start from? And they'd be like, I really don't know. I'd be like, okay, cool, no problem. Let me ask you another question. When you became depressed, who did you go to first? And a lot of people would say to me they went to the doctor. Okay. A lot of people believe that doctors are people that can inform you on information about yourself. But last time I checked, if you was depressed and you went to a doctor, the doctor's going to hand you a prescription, which are pills. The English language is like a spell. Do you realize what they're giving you? I'm just watching. You went to the doctor, you told the doctor you're depressed. Your doctor's not going to be a counselor to get you out of depression, which would be more beneficial for you, being honest. Majority of people, when they go to a doctor, they don't realize that the word pill, it's an illusion to the mind. See, if I'm a doctor and I give you a pill, right? Do you know what I'm doing to you? It's right there in your face. You ever had to find it in the book? It's right there in your face. Take the word P off a pill. What do you have now? You have ill. You notice that when they give people medications, they have side effects in them? Some of those side effects, right, that's trying to navigate and push depression out of you, give you side effects, give you new worse behavior problems. But a lot of people believe that they're just taking a pill. But that's the trick to the mind. They'll put it in your face, but it takes you to realize it as a conscious. So the pill that you're receiving is nothing more than ill if you just take the P off the word, because it's going to give you side effects that you never had before. And think about it. If you're depressed, right? Why would I give you medication as a doctor when I should just basically look at my client, right, and say to them simply as plain, hey, where did your depression start from? And if they don't know, what I would do is I would ask the client, hey, what do you eat? What type of information do you eat? And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of their depression of what they're feeling in their everyday life, it has to do with a place called a slaughterhouse. A lot of people look at me crazy when I'm saying this, but it's in America. You can actually do research for yourself and find out what it is. When I mean slaughterhouse, I'm not talking about the music group people. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the actual slaughterhouses that your meats come from. So let's talk about where did that depression come from. This is all about food. But food can lead the mind into depression because remember, food is information. Your stomach is going to break down that information and now transfer the information now to your mind, now to your vision. We'll talk to you about the vision in a minute. But so they have these places in America and all through the country where they have slaughterhouses, right? Now I want you to pay attention to this. When you have a slaughterhouse, right? You have two individuals that are in there. You have human beings and you have animals. But animals are actually something more if you realize what they are. And if you unlock your mind from the third dimension, you will realize what they are. So what happens is this. You have people that work in these slaughterhouses that get a minimum wage, right? And when they go to those slaughterhouses, there's a lot of horrific things that are going on. You can actually find it on YouTube if you want to, just like you're on YouTube now. And what you will see is a whole bunch of graphic videos of how animals are being slaughtered. But humans don't realize the process of what is actually going on with that animal psychologically in the mind. So let me show you how depression starts with animals and now fed to another human. Let me show you. You have a place called a slaughterhouse. You will have someone that is a butcher, right? Now listen to this. Those animals, right, have a brain. They have a conscience. And they're aware of what's going on. Now, let's just say, for instance, you have 3 cows, right? And these 3 cows are all about to get slaughtered. They didn't agree to be killed at all. But remember, all 3 of these cows are technically family members. They all know each other. They all sit on the same ranch and everything, and had experiences. Had experiences all with each other. But most people believe that they're just animals. So the cow has eyeballs like you, and can see just like you, and has a brain just like you. Maybe a little bit more smaller, but it has a conscience, and it's aware of what's going on. So imagine this. Imagine one cow, right, being lined up, going through a machine, right? And another cow is watching it and the process of what it's going to go through. Now pay attention to both of these cows. The one cow that's in the front is about to basically get killed, slaughtered. So what happens is this. The butcher has a machine that puts the cow head inside of a guillotine, cuts the head off. Blood is spilling all over the floor. It looks very horrific. But this is the American way. In the process of that scene that's going on, the other cows in the background are watching. They have eyes and they have a mind. Do you know that just as much as a human fear or have fear within them, the chemical reaction that is being built up in that second cow in the mind is depression, because that cow know it's going to be next on the list. Think about it. If it was your family and someone went to go guillotine one of your family members, that wouldn't make you depressed? Especially if you was a cow, you can't do anything back. The depression chemical reaction that is now stored and downloaded within that cow's mind, right? When he goes up there to that guillotine and get his head chopped off, the chemical reaction that's located in the mind, that depression, is now being pushed inside of the whole vessel. So this is how depression works. It simply works as you go to a slaughterhouse, you have 3 cows, and those cows have eyes along with a conscience, and they know what's going on, even though most humans believe, oh, it's just a cow. Okay. The chemical reaction that is now being downloaded in the mind is nothing but depression. So when you thinking you eating cows, chickens, hens, whatever you like that you like to eat meat, all they're feeding you is nothing but depression to keep you depressed and suppressed. But a lot of people don't know that, because a lot of people in the third dimension are only programmed to be a third dimensional character, which means that you're not aware of what you're doing. You think you are because you're caught up in your thoughts, but you're not in the subconscious in order to know exactly what's going on. So what happens is, once that depression now comes from the mind and now seeps into the vessel, everyone go buy it from where? The supermarket. And a lot of people believe that they're eating cows, chickens, hens, whatever they want, goats, whatever they want. But at the end of the day, those same people are feeding their depression and making their depression go higher and higher and higher and higher. That's where depression starts from. It starts from the dead animals that you eat. Those animals are not alive. Those animals are not really giving you any type of nutrients. Not like fruits, nuts, and berries, things that are naturally aligned with your genetic codes. It's not doing that. So I ask people all the time, are you consciously alive or are you consciously dead? Because if you were consciously alive, you would naturally eat things to feed your conscious to stay alive. If you're consciously dead, you would simply be like, oh, this guy crazy. He don't know what he's talking about. At the end of the day, this guy know that you eating a dead bird and selling your own mind a magic trick, which is by lying to your own conscience and saying, I'm eating fried chicken. People make me laugh. But at least I know. At least I know what I'm eating. I don't want to be like the crowd, because they're consciously dead and they only identify with what? Third dimensional things that are in this world. The third dimensional world, right? Not the natural things of this world, but more of materialistic things are technically all lies. And it's connected to people's emotional system as well. That's why a lot of people get offended when I say, oh yeah, you know, this is not that and this is not that. Because they're looking at it like, for over 30, 40 years, this is how they identify things. But I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not depressed. I'm happy about myself. And I would like for others to be happy about themselves as well. But pay attention. In America, we have a lot of negative people. Do we agree on that? We agree. And with that being said, food is also an energy source as well, just as much as it's information. It's different layers to it. But if your energy of who you are is alive, right? Why would you put dead energy within your conscious? Why would you do that? You're just doing it to yourself. I'm just watching. That's it. So when you go in this world, always realize that everything around you is technically information. Now, let's take it a step further. Remember, I was telling you about your stomach, which is technically your information processor. And then I was also telling you about your mind, that's also an information processor as well. And also is a data bank as well. Because you have memories, don't you, about yourself. You also have dreams, don't you, about yourself? So that would be a memory bank, remembering who you are. But hold on. If your memory is about who you are truly, how is it that the life that they designed for you real to you? Look, let me show you something. People in this world, right, from the age of, let's say, pre-K, let's say the age of, let's say age 5, we all go to pre-K. We go to elementary, junior high school, now high school. Did you notice in the whole time while you were in school, they never told you about how food actually operates within your vessel? They never taught you that. Do you know why they would never teach you that? Because the school is a third dimensional box as well. It's not real. It's not real information in order to build yourself up. See, you believe that education has to come from a mankind's institution. Do you know that school, right? The government funded? When has the government actually done anything right by the people besides making you feel good? See, look, watch this. In my past life, I thought I was the hottest shit. I thought I was. Because I was in the third dimensional world where I believed that I had to pay for things in order to experience life. But now when I think about it, I realize that I don't need to pay for something in order to experience things. I naturally came here as a soul that empowers my vessel in order to experience things. So why do I have to have a belief system that believes that anytime I pay for something, I get access to experience it? Is that a true experience though? Is it really real? Or is it a scam? It's just like this. They had this story about us, right? Watch this. They had this story about people that look like me. That's in U.S. history books. Talk about slavery. They said I was a slave. Do you realize what they're doing? School is nothing more than an informational box. A third dimensional informational box. The information that they're teaching your conscious is to make you think, well, those people were slaves. I'm not one. They catch you with your feelings and your emotions. But let me show you how slavery really works. If I was your enemy, I would lie about those people that look like me. And I would say to you, because you don't know any better, because you're a kid, and I would say to you, those people were slaves. Do you know why I'm telling you that? Because if you believe that they were slaves, you'll never believe that you were a slave. And it works something like this. They had these stories where they had these so-called slave masters. And if you notice with the slaves, they didn't get paid any money for the things that they do. The only thing that they could get is water, food, and a bed. Watch this. If your slave master only gave you that because you would sharecrop the yard, which is work, isn't that not work? Well, let's tie that into modern times. If I'm your landlord and I'm telling you, you got to go get a job in order to pay the rent, in order to live. You got to get a job to get a drink of water. The only difference between these two stories is you're being paid for it. The only reason why they're paying you is to make your emotions that is attached to $1, your emotions that are attached to $1 to make you feel good. That's it. If I can tie your emotion, paying for life is okay. But aren't you not enslaved to your bills? See, the way they set it up was, it's funny. The way they set it up is like, okay, these people are slaves over here. This is only when slavery existed. Okay, you can say that, if that's what you believe. But those same individuals are still here today. They just do it in a modern way, where you're not on the slave plantation, and technically you are, because that's what your job is. And a lot of people don't realize at their jobs that there's nothing but energy vortexes that's underneath them. Everything that's physical is spiritual. Everything that you see, every being that you see, there's a spiritual part as well. But once your mind get locked down to the third dimension, you will never have access to that. You will never have access to actually seeing your own soul. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting for you to see your own soul? Or would that be scary for you? Oh, it's because a lot of people lock their mind to the third dimension and forgot what they originally were before they came into this vessel. A lot of people forget about themselves. A lot of people believe that they're just the vessel. That's it. And the identity that they get from the Matrix. That's it. See, when you look at me, you would say, he looked like a black male or Hispanic male. But I would tell you in return, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful. What you always do in order to get to know someone is let them self-identify who they are. You never put a false identity or false belief system on them. Because the knowledge that you speak of is nothing more than a spell from a third dimensional world. A third dimensional world that consists of lies, not truth. You believe that this world is truthful? Think again. Think again. It's not a truthful world. If the world was of truth, don't get me wrong, the world is now coming back into truth. Don't get me wrong. But before truth was reborn again, you had lies running rampant. And listen to me. What is the quote that people say on the earth? The truth hurts. So lies must feel good then. That's the type of world we live in. More people identify with third dimensional lies than they will actually identify with the truth that's within them. See, when you're truthful to yourself, you realize that the truth is within you. So when you seek information of truth, you don't really have to go to the surface level information from the third dimensional world. You can step out of the third dimensional world consciously, spiritually, and now step into the fourth dimensional world that resides within you. Your subconscious, yes, that's what I speak of. Your subconscious knows everything about you. Pay attention to what I'm about to say to you. If you came to this world with a subconscious that knows everything about you, why wouldn't you not transfer the information from the subconscious now to the mind? The mind is nothing more than The mind is nothing more than a learner. Your subconscious is the teacher to your mind. Do you know why it's set up like that? Because you only came to this earth to remember who you are. That's it. That's the heated truth. That's the only reason why you came here. Is to remember who you are. Pay attention. Have you ever had an experience where most people on earth call it deja vu? Like, wow, I feel like I have done this before. You have. But the only way to experience that is to naturally live with. The only way to experience that is to naturally live and trust in your spirit of who you are. That's the only way you will experience that. Because when you trust within your spirit, which is you, your spirit empowers the body. You thought you was just the body, didn't you? It's okay. I thought I was too. But pay attention. It gets greater. Just listen. If you was just the body, right? That means you only get to live one time. Pay attention. If you was just the body and the mind, give me 1 second. All right, it's okay. I must have left it at the house. It's all right. Let me just say this before we go. If you was just your body, you will only experience life one time. But if you realize that you are a spirit that's empowering the body, you don't experience death. See, you believe that you're experiencing death because you're looking at it like, well, my body's not waking up no more. Last time I checked, your spirit is the one that wake the body up. That's what you do. I'm just watching what you do. Can you remember what you're doing? That's the key thing. To remember what you're doing. A lot of people don't remember what they're doing. With that being said, I gotta go. My battery power is getting a little bit weak. Until next time, my friend. Have a nice one.